As we continue our study of Greece, it's important to understand the history of Greece. As a review, let's talk about the geography of Greece. Greece is located in the northeastern hemisphere. It's very mountainous, and it is made up of over 2,000 islands. Greece's first civilizations. The first one is the Minoans. This is a civilization that developed on the island of Crete. Their culture was influenced by a lot of other Mediterranean cultures like Egypt. Historians believe that the Minoans were actually defeated or conquered by the Mycenaeans. The Mycenaeans are the actual first group of true Greeks according to the historians. They were a warlike people, and they were very famous for their attack on a city of Troy, or what is known as the Trojan War. War and earthquakes caused the fall of the Mycenaeans around 1100 BC. The Dorians were the next group of invaders to the north, and they actually drove out all of the Greeks from the mainland. They were known for making very strong iron weapons and tools. Their invasion led to chaos in Greece. This chaos was called the Dark Ages in Greece. Eventually, the Greeks returned to the mainland, and the Dark Ages ended. The Greek population grew, and they began to establish colonies and settle around the Mediterranean Sea. Greek city-states. Early Greece was a very dangerous place. Invaders would attack, and violence was very common. Eventually, people began to band together for protection. These groups of people developed into the city-states. City-states are independent areas or political units made up of a city and all surrounding lands. It was called a polis in Greek. Most city-states had very similar layouts. At the center was a fortress on a hill. The hill was called an acropolis, which in Greek means top city. Many city-states built temples and other public buildings around or on the Acropolis. City-states also had an agora. An agora was a marketplace near the center of a Greek city. It served as a meeting place or very similar to a town square. Two of the most famous city-states in Greece were Athens and Sparta. Athens is located in eastern Greece. Athens focused on developing the mind. It is famous for its focus on education, literature, government, and art. Athens was the first to have a democratic government. They had what was called a direct democracy. A direct democracy means that all citizens met to debate and vote on government issues. However, not everyone could vote. To be a citizen, you had to be a male and you had to own land. Women and slaves were not allowed to vote in Athens. Athens had a very famous leader named Pericles. Pericles encouraged Athenians, or people of Athens, by supporting education, art, literature, and architecture. Pericles was the leader of Athens during Greece's Golden Age. A Golden Age is a period in a society's history marked by great achievements. In Greece, it was a time period between 500 and 300 BC. This was a time when Greek thinkers, artists, and writers contributed many new ideas to the world. The Parthenon was built in Athens. This is a very famous structure in all of Greece. It's very known throughout the world. It was a temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. Athens considered Athena to be their protector. Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato were philosophers or great thinkers in Athens. These people were curious about how the world worked. For example, they wanted to know what made people happy. So they would think about it and they would discuss it and have these long discussions and conversations with people. These men's teaching and ideas continue to shape the world we live in today. Sparta is the next very famous city-state of Greece. Sparta was Athens' rival city-state. They did not get along. They were famous for their focus on their military. Sparta valued strength, deceit of an enemy, and fearlessness about death. Sparta was ruled by an oligarchy. An oligarchy is a government in which a very few wealthy people hold power over the larger group of citizens. Unlike Athens, Spartan women did have some rights. They were actually allowed to own their own land. Eventually, Sparta and Athens went to war. This war was called the Peloponnesian War. It lasted from 431 to 404 BC. Sparta won the war. However, Greece was in shambles. They had lost so many men that Greece was left very vulnerable to invaders. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was from an area known as Macedonia. In 336 BC, him and his well-trained army conquered all of Greece. Alexander the Great was the first person to unite all of Greece under a single rule. Alexander wanted to create an empire. Therefore, he and his army began to invade other areas of the world. At the height of his empire, he controlled all the land from Greece to India. His empire also included nearly all of Central Asia and Egypt. Eventually, Alexander's troops began to get tired of fighting, so they refused to fight. Therefore, his empire did not grow any further. Alexander and his troops began to go back to Greece. However, he became ill and died at age 33. Since Alexander's empire was so large, Greek culture spread and blended with other cultures. Historians call this blending of cultures Hellenistic. Hellenistic cultures are cultures that are Greek-like or have aspects of the Greek culture. Greek achievements. The Greeks had many achievements in the areas of architecture, literature, science, math, government, and philosophy. These achievements still influence our world today. Architecture. These three columns were created by the Greeks. They are still used in architecture today. Now remember, I'm a social studies teacher, not an art teacher, so bear with me. This column is known as a Doric column. It's a very plain and simple column. For instance, you would see this maybe on the White House or the Capitol building in Raleigh. An Ionic column is a column that has scrolls at the top, or little swirls. And a Corinthian column is a column that has a lot of decoration at the very top. Mythology was one of the other Greek achievements. Mythology are bodies of stories or legends belonging to the Greeks concerning their gods or heroes. These stories were about the nature of the world. Many of these stories are still told and read today. The Olympics. The Greeks had the first Olympic Games in 776 BC to honor Zeus. Science. Greeks created hydraulics. In medicine, the Greeks believed that germs or sickness was very scientific rather than religious. So they thought people got sick because of something maybe they ate or something that they touched, rather than the gods being mad at them. In math, Greeks created what's called the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is a theorem you will continue to use in math as you get older. I think the first time you use it is actually in pre-algebra.